the skills and attitude and mindset and outlook and all the things required to make money generally makes you a better human being in the first place. One of the greatest form of joy and happiness is when you help out other people.
Yo, B, let's go. You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. Your favorite two rebels here. Today, we're going to be discussing a relationship. Essentially, no, it's not your typical relationship. It is the relationship between happiness and money. All right, so let's dive into it, see what we got. So, B, when talking about happiness and money, I think it's a pretty controversial topic. Can money buy happiness, etc., which I think we will definitely touch on that specific quote. But I wanted to kind of start with, how do you define happiness? Or even, like, what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness to me is just having enough satisfaction in your life. I'm trying to lead it towards the word regret.
Okay.
Because like when you don't have regret, that definitely brings me joy. Looking back in my life, feeling accomplished, feeling like I produced something.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling to me. And
Okay.
even if I'm not happy, the pursuit of happiness, trying to work towards something that I want to ultimately get to, I think that brings me joy. The pursuit of happiness brings me happiness at that moment for most of the time.
Okay. Dude, I'm smiling so hard, I swear this isn't scripted. I was thinking about this question in my head. You used the word joy and satisfaction. I was going to use those exact two words. So if I flip the question on myself and ask kind of what happiness means to me, when I was thinking about this, the first answer I had was fleeting. If I put it in like the simplest, like the least amount of words possible, it was fleeting fulfillment. And I was like, okay, but that's still maybe kind of vague. So I was like, all right, how can I dig that a little, like kind of peel back the onion a little further? And I boiled it down to, I think, kind of two words, which were for me, satisfaction and joy. I think satisfaction is more of a state of being, like being satisfied. Like I have a goal, I completed it, like I am content, I am satisfied. But also the emotion that comes with that of like the overcoming or like attaining something is joy. Like I'm satisfied because I am now at this position, this level, but I am actually joyous because I have or I did this thing. So I think for me, whereas long lasting happiness is also, it's brief. I think the difference between happiness and fulfillment, kind of what you were saying, like long term, like the pursuit of happiness, the continual happiness for me is fulfillment. Like if I buy something that I wanted, like I'm not gonna be fulfilled. Like I'm happy, like cool, I got this thing. It's probably gonna last about a week, and then it's like gone. Us building this podcast, which we intend to do long term, and having hundreds of heartfelt, deep discussions that we could possibly share with others. That is like fulfilling. Like that is a thing I continue to do that continues to pour into me and grow me. Yeah, for me, happiness is like a combination of like satisfaction and joy. For money, don't think we gotta explain that. Think it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't know, or is it? Is any way any do you think common misconceptions of money or thoughts surrounding money? Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know.
I think the common thought that we're trying to be a rebel against is the saying that money can't buy you happiness. The quotes like money isn't everything. And that's such a one-sided view of money. You just taught to think this way as you're growing up. I think from a traditional standpoint, viewpoint of money.
With the idea that money can't buy you, or money can't buy you happiness. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think about that?
If you take that statement very literally, I think it does stand true. Money itself literally can't buy you happiness, does not bring you happiness. When I get the money that I get on a daily basis, it's not necessarily happiness. It's more of like a high feeling to me that I get to experience for a little bit. And then after a couple of days, it's nice seeing money in my bank account or whatever platform. But that doesn't make me fulfilled or satisfied.
Right.
after the initial hit. You're just chasing that paycheck.
Yeah.
Or you're chasing that outcome, which is money, which is definitely not happiness.
Yeah, money. I think anybody will agree. I think objectively, money, correct, cannot literally physically buy you happiness. But it's so interesting to think about how money. It's like money can't buy you happiness, but money can provide you or buy you some things to make you happy. It's almost like, what was it like back in math, like the transitive property. It's like not directly, but almost indirectly can get you closer to happiness or possibly happiness. So which is why I think that quote is so interesting and just so funny and oftentimes like debated because it can get you so many things. Money can provide you a level of comfort, a level of security, resources, all things that make you either kind of directly happy or can put you in a position to get things that are like your goals that could maybe fulfill you even long term or other things that make you happy. So it's like
I think when you have money, you're in a place to be happier easier.
mm-hmm.
Like you're open to the happy feeling more, just because, like you said, gives you that security. Financial security is a big thing, peace of mind thing.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about that. You don't have, your negative thoughts don't have to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you have more thoughts that can go towards your happiness. And I think it buys the most important thing of anything, which is freedom and time. The money does get you that. And at least for me, freedom is what we're all trying to chase at the end of the day. Either happiness or freedom, which is both ultimately the goal of
Okay.
life. And money, like I say, cannot get you to the happiness point directly, but having that freedom to do whatever you want, you chase your passion, just spend time with your family, give those, you can just buy experiences, definitely leads to happiness.
Okay. I want to anchor on that freedom point because would you argue one could be free without money? It sounds like in the way you phrased it, you can't be, but in the instance,
oh, you definitely can. I'm thinking of
I think someone could
like a monk type
a
that
nomad.
comes to my mind right away.
Yes.
And they're training themselves to kind of. I'm not a monk. I don't have any monks in the family. I don't know too much, but I don't. I think they're detached from money to a
I
good
think
point.
materialism thing. I think they try to like dissolve themselves of all material desires. If I'm not mistaken, yeah.
And if you get to that point, that's amazing for you. But 99.99% of the population
Right.
is not that. Will
Right.
never be that.
Right.
And money will be a thing, a means of exchange of, buying shelter, buying food, buying experiences, buying security for when they're born to when they die.
Now, when we also look at, because there could be also people, I think a monk is a great example, but just like kind of live a nomadic lifestyle where they're just kind of low maintenance travelers, if you will, or bounce around, or even, but more realistically, because I think that's rare, in some other countries or like third world countries, there are some people that I think are like genuinely happy, maybe even fulfilled, that just simply don't require very little. I'm not gonna say no money, but their means of currency is like extremely minimal. But then I don't know, when you kind of like dig into that even, because we said, right, like money could buy you like resources or security, comfort. You could argue that they have less of those things even available. Like there are just less resources to buy or less security to be had. Their whole cultural infrastructure is different where they don't need or prioritize those things. Whereas in America, it's like, you see it all the time. It's preached like, hey, you gotta have, you want to maximize your comfort or the maximum security or what have you. So I guess in that sense, do you think happiness or like a type of happiness is almost like maybe a product of the environment?
I think it's definitely situational for every person, and there's a level of standard that they base their happiness off of. Like for example, the East Asian country, if their natural security point is on a scale of 1 to 10, a 3, for example, and then our natural security state is at a 7. When it goes to 8 for us, that's good. And when it goes to, what did I say? They were at 3.
You
So
said 3.
if they go to 4, we experience the same level of happiness, even though in our
Right.
eyes they look
It's
really
right.
bad in a sense.
It's funny because you would think money is money pretty much anywhere. It has the same meaning. Like happiness is happiness. Definitionally, anywhere it means the same thing, but it's all kind of dependent on your environment and like where you are. Obviously, we're both American and live in America, so pretty much when we're speaking, that's what it pertains to. But I think it's always interesting to consider what other possibilities, like some of these things that are said aren't absolutes, like they're not like hard fact no matter where you go or at any point in time. We both lived in Japan for a while and could have experienced a different lifestyle. Like I genuinely thought, which now I think about it, it's kind of interesting. I genuinely like I was very happy. I think I'm a typically like pretty happy person, but I was very happy while living in Japan. But more surprisingly, the general population just seemed happier.
Which is interesting because Japan does have the highest suicide rate,
I didn't know it was a high, but yeah,
which goes against like if they're happy, they're not gonna kill themselves.
correct, correct. Do you think money is like highly prioritized in Japan?
No, definitely not. No,
Okay.
compared to the United States culture, absolutely not. Even in the United States, I think most families, my family was this way.
Mm-hmm.
It was not prohibited, but it was looked down upon to talk about money in a family setting.
Really?
You never wanted to talk about money because it was naturally what my parents weren't good at. So naturally, they didn't want to talk about it. So we have that stigma, or I think that the United States as a whole has that stigma, and even in Japan, I think it's more so. It is a weird dynamic because there's different aspects of money that they have that's more prevalent, and in most of the times, it's also more strict than American culture. How I see it.
That's crazy because from what you just said, two things I gathered, like more money is prioritized less and suicide rates are higher. So in that relationship between money and happiness, low prioritization of money, higher suicide rate. Whereas in America, like you always hear about money, gotta have it, needed to survive. Now I don't know statistically speaking where America falls in comparison to other countries with the suicide rate, but I guess you could argue like people might again appear to be happier or happier and money is prioritized. So that kind of highlights that relationship between money and happiness. So, which I never really thought about. I never had the opportunity to really think about it and comparing it with another country like that. It's kind of funny to think about.
The money thing is how I experienced Japan, like navigating through Japan and the United States. But I can tell you for a fact, Americans tries to portray their life as being happy much more than a Japanese. There's a majority overwhelming of people where their purpose, it seems like to me as an outsider, they're not even trying to have fun. They're just trying to look like they're trying to have fun
You talking about in America?
through in America, right?
Yeah.
Through Snapchat or Instagram. They care about the showing off the experience of having fun regardless of how they're feeling to
Right.
the outside world. To I don't know what they're looking for, attention, envy.
Right. Or making it look like right they're having money, which is crazy because I think they do that adrenaline rush or the endorphin hit like almost to feel happier. So it's crazy how it's like a loop in so many ways. They're trying to give the facade of having money, i.e., through material things or experiences, because it makes them feel good for that burst of kind of happiness you were talking about before. So again, it's just like I think I think for sure there is a relationship between happiness and money. And I think this is such a cool discussion because even as we're talking, like I'm finding there's different correlations between happiness and money. So I guess for you, do you feel like most of your and I don't know, we could talk about it. I don't know if this has to do with introverted or being introverted or extroverted, but do you find most of your happiness comes from like eternally or like external factors?
I think happiness comes internally. Happiness is, I associate that word with more of that fulfillment, and fulfillment is how you feel after reviewing your past actions and consequences of those actions. And even though those were caused by external factors, the initial action and what you did is all internal. So I think it's mostly internal. 90% internal.
Now is that what you're saying? How you experience happiness, or that's just what you generally think about happiness?
I experience happiness internally, but again, when I look at the general population, it seems like they get their happiness from outside, external factor by social validation and acceptance is it's a valid thing to
Yeah,
try to.
who doesn't want to feel accepted? I feel like that's only human. I don't think I'm gonna ever meet anybody that's like. Now it's cool. There are people that like, I'm cool with like hanging out with like not hanging out with a bunch of people. I don't really care what other people think. But there's nobody that's like, I don't like being accepted. Like that's unhuman like. But to your point, I mean, I think it all stems from, I guess, kind of within. Like, I'm trying to think. If I'm being honest, all right, I'll start with, like, for me, there are definitely outside things that bring me happiness. Again, I keep going to the word fleeting. It's often fleeting. And sometimes I know it's, like, superficial. Like, I'm self-aware. Like, sometimes I'm literally, like, all right, I need to, not get on Instagram as much. Or, like, all right, this month or whatever, like, I'm going to try to not buy as many things. Because some people, I think, fall in a reliance on that social media or that material thing because they're feeling down. I don't know if you heard like retail therapy. Like people feel down and they literally go buy something to make them feel better. And I just don't think that's, one, sustainable and like internally valuable. So I consciously try to stay away from things like that and replace that with like, all right, what actually makes me happy? Or something I could do that like makes me better that also makes me happy. So like we talk about a lot. Like I've been reading a lot lately, and I've never liked reading, but I think I'm getting to the point like I can kind of feel the transition where I've been forcing myself to read, and I'm kind of like I kind of like reading, or at least I appreciate it enough to the fact that like I'm very okay with doing it.
I don't like reading either. I just like the thought of learning something, and I feel productive by reading,
Yes.
gathering new ideas. Those are the things that I enjoy. It's like alcohol, where I don't like drinking,
Yeah, that's a great example.
but I like being drunk.
Right.
So that's that with books for me. I've never been. I am a reader. I never enjoyed it, but I think I will continue to read just because of the other benefits and a sense of being productive and sense of doing good with my time. That joy keeps me reading.
Bro, perfect full circle moment. It's like money can't buy happiness. No, but it can buy you this that can make you happy. It's the same thing. Yeah, like yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, I mean, I don't love money. Like I don't feel like I don't want to learn about money as much as you do. Like I don't enjoy learning about money like as much as you do or talk about it. And I was like, I don't know that I love learning about money. I like learning, but like it's not like I'm just fascinated with money and how I like learning about money because it will help me navigate society and elevate me and put my family in certain positions to do certain things. I don't just, if there was like I'm gonna say no benefit from it, but like I just don't do it as a hobby. I do it as a means to an end for myself in certain positions. I mean, I do like learning, and I just that was interesting. And they were like, well, yeah, I want to. So I asked them, I was like, so are you just you're not gonna ever learn like the knowledge you have on money now? Are you comfortable with that level of knowledge? If your level of knowledge on money right now was the same level of knowledge you have from now to you died, would you be okay? And they were like, I mean, no. I was like, so you're gonna learn about money? And they were like, yeah. I was like, okay, exactly. Like you don't have to love it, but it's gonna get you those things that you need to build a life that you want. I think that's the connection with happiness.
So the generic statement that we talked about, can money buy your happiness? The literal answer to that is no. When someone says that, my answer is often yes, it can absolutely buy you happiness. And I don't know why. Why is the overwhelming consensus that it can't buy you happiness? Oh, that was always so weird to me. They try to make it a point, like, oh, money can't buy you happiness. And us being so young, I'm sure you experienced this. I like talking about money. I like learning about money. And a lot of people are not comfortable with the topic of money. So when I bring it up, certain people just go to that quote of "oh, money can't buy you happiness," and it's almost as a escape route for them.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, mic drop, like let's stop having this conversation kind of thing. I would only say that if I was in like a sore loser kind of thing. They wanted it at some point, and they just never got it. So their idea was that, hey, you know what? It's okay that I didn't get money because money can't buy you happiness. Like, money's not everything. It's funny how they say that because prior to that conversation, no one says that money can buy you happiness. We're not out there saying that, yeah, money can buy you happiness.
Right.
Or We're not out there in the conversation saying, "Oh, money is everything. You shouldn't care about anything else." We never preface with that, but yet they always go to those certain quotes as
100%.
a reaction, almost like a
Yeah.
reflex.
And I think you can make I mean, obviously you can make arguments for money buying you happiness or not buying happiness. For it not buying happiness, I think the argument would be more literal, as you stated. But I think it, and if somebody needed a more accurate statement, maybe like money can contribute to happiness, or I would argue greatly contribute to your well-being and happiness. And I also think it depends on the demographic you ask. I'm trying to think, like, if you ask somebody that didn't have a car, hey, a car would help you get around, and they're like, yeah, but I can get around, like, there's other ways to get around, like there's other ways to get to my destinations, like there is, but what I'm trying to say is you can't, it's hard for somebody to conceive something that they've never had. Like if you're talking to somebody, and right, like there is a basic need for money, so I want to get that out the way. Like you do need money for food, water, and shelter, but we're talking about beyond that, right? If you talk to somebody that's never had a substantial amount of money, and I say substantial in their eyes, subjectively, like whatever they view as substantial. If they've never had what they view as a substantial amount of money, then they've never had what comes with that money, and then as a result of that, had the emotion resulting from that, which may be happiness. So if they can't speak to it, because if you talk to, let's say, just wealthy people or millionaires, I haven't asked any millionaires this question myself personally, but like, hey, has money, I wouldn't say bought your happiness, contributed to your happiness? I would predict that they would say yes. And I've also read books that people that have interviewed them that also relay what money has been from them. And money can be a tool if you leverage it correctly to, again, contribute to your well-being and happiness. I don't know about you, but anytime I want something or want to know, I go to somebody that has that thing that I'm trying to get. I'm not going to seek out somebody that doesn't have the thing that I'm trying to get.
You never ever hear you always hear the quote, "Money can't buy you happiness," literally from the person that doesn't have money. And that is a very typical common trend that I have seen. It's like with anything, it doesn't have to be about money. You can say that about having a six-pack. Having a six-pack doesn't bring you happiness. When you talk to like bodybuilders and people in shape that worked hard to achieve that six-pack, for example, I feel like they're going to have more happiness resulting from their body, their physique. And it's more of a lifestyle at that point, right? I'm not talking about the 11-year-old that just is skinny and has a six-pack. And right now in the United States, it is harder to have a six-pack than to be a millionaire, which is a cool stat that I read the other day. I think that's a very good comparison. Like you said, of course six-pack doesn't bring you happiness. But when I had it, I was happy when I look in the mirror. I don't have it now, for sure, I can tell you that. But for a brief period of time, I had like a 4-pack. And I felt good. Looking in the mirror, it felt good looking at it.
Yeah, and right.
As again, it's a temporary thing, but that brings you more confidence and how you view yourself, and all those things correlate to happiness in one way or another.
Dude, I think you hit on something huge with the six-pack thing that was like almost the working for the six-pack, which is a whole nother element of this conversation. Similarly, how religion gives people inspiration and something to look forward to, and gives them a perceived end goal of like how to live their life or how to act. Like the pursuit of money, like if you have an end goal, I want to make X amount of money, I want to have this. Working towards that will give you happiness, or even arguably the fulfillment, the sustained happiness, because you've put in your blood, sweat, and tears. Now, again, that doesn't have to be money. Somebody could argue, be like, oh yeah, I could just work towards starting a family. And then, yeah, you could. But the work towards getting that money is, I think, just as important as actually having that money. But the beautiful thing about that is, like, once you have the money, it is tangible and can directly get you other things. So not only are you bettering yourself to acquire the money, once you have the money, by virtue of having it, it can afford you more things. So it's kind of twofold in that regard, both relating to happiness. Like having more money, you can physically buy things that, again, could make you happy. Or the process of trying to acquire that money can make you happy because you're working towards a purpose, towards a goal that you laid out for yourself.
Yeah, that's good, and definitely not often talked about. And I definitely lean towards what you said on number 2. Chasing money is like a game. It's just a game that you play as an adult.
I think it's a game after you have enough to meet your basic needs, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's a good point too. But I'm just trying to optimize the game, and even if I lose a good amount of money, to me at this point, well, I guess I haven't lost enough money
Yeah.
because I get to say this smiling. But even when I lose, let's say a couple $1,000 and whatever, I took a chance and it didn't work out. It honestly, I don't care. It's not a big deal to me because the fun of it is trying to get that back and trying to, optimize it so that you can get some money faster than slower. And thinking about that, and I think it sounds shallow, but I think there is some truth in it. The skills and attitude and mindset and outlook and all the things required to make money generally makes you a better human being in the first place. To make money, you generally have to have hard work. In 21st century, there are a lot of ways to get money very easily.
I was just about to say,
minimal effort, but for majority of the people, hard work helps with getting money. Working hard, or not working hard, but working smart also gets you money, and having a lot of knowledge can help you get money. And those things are good attributes to have as a human. In a first world country, I would say, 99, more than 99, like probably 1 out of 1,000,000 person. It's like in the United States, only like the Amish are the people that's not really directly living their life with interaction with money, and everyone else is.
Right. Kind of goes like what we talked about before. Yeah, it's just a cultural difference. Yeah.
So if everyone's dealing with money, why can't we be in a place to, try to get good at it? And if you're trying to get good at it, honestly, it's kind of a blessing because most people suck at it, and you just need to be better than the average to make it in most things.
Right. Like in anything, like in order for there to be a top tier, there naturally has to be a lower tier. But it is interesting because no, I don't want to minimize that different people start from like different starting points in life. And certain people have like different obstacles to get it, but there now more than ever there's like blueprints out there where you can, again, it really just kind of takes hard work and discipline and sacrifice lumped into that to really like commit to that. Like there are blueprints out there like, hey, if you do this, you will make this much money. Like you can calculate like your return on investment, or there's just so many, like you could probably go on YouTube for a month straight, kind of self-teach yourself, foster your skills in one particular area. And like there are ways, we talked about this in one of our other episodes, there are more ways now to make money than there ever has been. And to your point, like even I think the term working smarter, I would love to know like when in history that term was coined, because I guarantee like it's heard now more than ever. Like 20 years ago, like working smarter probably wasn't, that phrase probably wasn't as prevalent as like just people, just really prioritizing hard work. It's funny, I watched another podcast literally yesterday, and they believe that like you can't even work smarter until you've mastered working hard. Like even in working smarter, there has to be some level of hard work. Like hard work will never go away. And I know personally, I will always value hard work. But I thought that was interesting that like hard work is kind of implicit within working smarter. I think to some extent, you can never just replace good old-fashioned hard work.
Generally, doing hard work as humans, having productivity brings you money, and also it's funny, also brings you happiness. There's so many people just trying to, I don't know what the right word is, but trying to discorrelate or trying to uncorrelate the relationship between money and happiness. But now that we talked about it more and more, there's just overlapping evidences that it's generally linked together to a good to a good extent. I think that's valid too. It's not crazy news because money is just a means of exchange.
Yep.
Just a store of value.
So
There's
the definition.
By trying to go towards money, you're not really going towards money. You're trying to go towards things you can exchange with money. And those things absolutely bring you happiness on a daily basis, every single day. I feel so happy when I wake up in my bed, in my house, that I bought with money, that I worked for. I'm happy about that. That's fulfillment too. I like it.
You talked about that link between money and happiness. Now, if we inverse it, we've pretty much been talking about how money leads to happiness, but there can be an argument made, and I know some people has also theorized that like happiness will get you more money. which again is just, this topic is so crazy because if you are generally more happy, even without doing a study, like if I just sit here and think like, okay, if I have person A and person B, clones of each other, identical, only one is happy and one is not, who do I think is going to make more money? Like somebody put a gun in my head and they're like, you have to place a bet on one of these people. Who do you think is going to make more money over the next 10 years? Exactly the same. One's happy, one's not happy. Just as like their personality. I'm going to pick the person that's happy. And again, there are studies that back that. I'm going to bring up an author real quick, Marcy Shimoff, I think is how you pronounce her name, who I haven't read anything by her, but I watched a podcast recently, and she said, I don't know if this is what the statistical backing is on this, but it's something I never heard that's interesting to think about. She said happiness is 50% genetic, 10% circumstantial, and 40% habitual, like habits of thought, behavior, and feelings. So obviously, like genetic, you can't control that, but like your circumstance, which is the 10%, you can kind of control, and the 40%, your habits, behavior, and feelings, you can control pretty significantly. So in thinking about that, and again, this relationship with happiness and money, if being more happy increases my potential to get more money, why? First off, who doesn't want to be happy? Like, unless you're like the freaking Grinch that stole Christmas, who thrives in being grumpy. Like, who doesn't want to choose? Like, if it was so easy as like, I had a genie and I was like, genie, I want to be happy. Like, just simply choose. Who's not going to choose happiness, right? So, anyways, I'm rambling, but if you can control it, why not put some effort into controlling, again, your environment, your circumstances going to make you happy, and your emotions and habits that make you happy. Not even talking about money, just generally speaking, you know what I mean? Then you layer on the potential that it could bring you money. Well, sign me up. Like, I'm in. She also, in that same podcast, she talked about fringe benefits of happiness. Again, just by virtue of being happy, things that could be like a side benefit or could manifest. She said, happier people are less likely to get sick, live longer, have better relationships, are typically more successful, and go figure, have more money. I was like, this is crazy. Again, listen to this by pure like coincidence, and I was like, it may. Again, I don't study any of these things, but I've read a couple books on happiness. That's about the extent of it, but it makes sense.
In the last year, I moved to Phoenix, and I've met many wealthy people financially. Relative to me, I probably met 100 people that they make a lot of money. And when you talk to them, they are majority happy people, right? They seem happy, they seem like they're doing stuff, and that's not always the case because I think the bad examples get highlighted on the news and social media and whatnot. And there's always going to be that couple outliers. But majority of the time, they're happy, they're nice, they're good people.
It's like, do they have money because they're happy, or are they happy because they have money? It's like funny, but go ahead.
But most of the people that I genuinely disliked, and it just sucked my energy just to be around them. Now that I think about it, most of them were not wealthy at all. They may have a good income, but I can for sure tell you that they were not wealthy.
So let's see, like, what can't money buy that people find? Because I think it's always valuable to look at the other side of the argument. What are some things that money truly can't buy or have nothing to do with that people find happiness or fulfillment in? I can think of one: relationships.
Okay. You said that money can't buy, which I agree, can't buy relationship or have anything to do with.
That's why I added that. Right. Because again, we said money can't buy happiness, but
when you put that second part in, I think everything in this world can be affected with money. Relationship side, yeah, you can't buy a good wife or a good boyfriend, good girlfriend, whatever. At the same time, it would help to have the financial freedom to give everything to your relationship. And if their love language, the gift receiving is high on the level, you don't have to spend a lot of money on the gift that you give. But it makes it so much easier to have money to give someone 'Cause recently, I bring up the love languages. It reminded me, but my wife claims that her love language number five, the least important one, is receiving gifts. But it seems like we just bought her a new MacBook
Hmm.
because her old one was really old. It was
Hmm.
like from 2017, 2024. So that's almost 7 years at this point.
Yeah.
It was a dinosaur. So we luckily got an $80 trade in for that, and we got a new
Okay.
MacBook Air. And then when she got it, cheek to cheek, there was a big smile, and she looked pretty happy. Right? I
Yeah.
think I get that's more joy, like what we talked about,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it gradually fades over time. But
Yeah.
in a sense, it did help a relationship. Not it sounds really bad when I say that, but
Pro tip for everybody that has a unhappy wife: buy him a MacBook. Plug for Apple.
at a minuscule level, if our relationship was a percentage based thing they can see a
Right.
score of, it did help 0.01% of
Right.
it
Right. Right.
towards a better in the right direction. So yeah, when you say what does money have effect on, it has effect on everything, literally everything.
Okay, yeah, but like, I mean, if you, yes, there, I think you could find sure, money is woven into many things. It's funny, I'm trying to think of an example where it's not, and I'm having a hard time. I was like, maybe, like, if you have a kid, like, that has nothing to do, like, the act of having a kid or not, has nothing to do with money, but sure, money has a part in raising the kid for sure. I guess it's not money, non-material sources of happiness would be a better way to put it. All right, so right, like money can help with, I think all
Yeah,
like
but
all, dare I
it
say
just
all things, but it's like you can do these things without it or
yeah
start.
it's a balance thing. It's like money alone will not do a lot of the things, but
Right. Money,
it
yes,
will help.
right.
Like if you're trying to be very physically muscular, like have a good physique, just working out isn't only get you so far.
Hmm.
Just eating good food is only going to get you so far. Just sleeping really having good quality sleep is going to only get you so far. When you have a good mix of all three,
Hmm.
you're going to be pretty big pretty quick.
Well, we can break those down. Good quality
It's like
sleep. What do you need? I mean, if we were talking about real quality, like you're totally invested, this is your one goal for this 6 months of the year. Like you might be buying a better bed, better pillows. If
uh-huh.
you're talking about good
Mhm.
working out, like you're not going doing push-ups in the basement. Like you need a membership, maybe a better
It just
gym,
helps.
money. If you're buying healthy food, I mean that actually may be cheaper. You might save money on that one if you cut down how you're eating. But depending on where you buy it from, like groceries, or maybe you can groceries more, like that's much. So even still.
Why is our society keep sticking with the narrative that money can't buy you happiness? Like, why is that still a thing?
If I had to guess, it'd be because the majority of society has, I'm not gonna say has less money than they want. And as society progresses, I think the narrative of money is increasing. So it's harder to be perceived as having money than it was maybe like 20 or I don't know X amount of years ago, because more and more it's just publicized that, like, in layman terms, like money is cool. So like you may be like, somebody may be pretty well off and they're still fiending for, like, I need more, to the point again where they're not even they don't feel comfortable, secure, or have the resources, like some things I named earlier, to even feel happy when really they have like enough. So I think, to answer your question, it's just like the societal pressures, man, can contribute to happiness, but happiness can contribute to money. So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I think once you find that sweet spot, like if you can, which is why I think it's important to talk about what you don't need money for to be happy. Because if you can develop a self-sustaining happiness without, I'll say, a lot of money, and then as you live in that, you get more money. Now you get more money, you become happy, and then it's just like a back and forth. But you have to get to that initial threshold first of like, okay, I have a good amount of money. I feel happy consistently. Once you hit that, I think one can just take off. But again, it's like, how do you get to that initial threshold? I'm the student right out of college. I got college debt looming over my head. Like, I don't know really what I want to do. And you're just kind of like just taking off on life. Because another thing we could think about, okay, do you think Do you think, on average, like if I took 100 random adults, 100 random kids, and varying backgrounds too, I'm not even gonna say like from the same state, like all over the U.S., do you think the 100 adults would be more happier, or the majority of the 100 adults would be happier, or the majority of the 100 kids? And when I say kids, we'll say 10 or younger, 10 to like 5, like somebody that like can process their emotions.
No, definitely the kids.
I think the kids. Okay, so if we dive into that, like why are the kids happy? They don't have money.
They don't have that social pressure. In society as an adult, when you don't have money, you may correlate that experience with your lack of success. And that's a objective thing that you can measure is, we talk about, we always talk about in our conversations, what is success? And there's not the right answer that you can give a definition on. Success doesn't depend on every single person.
Right.
But one thing that you can measure success to a certain degree objectively is how much money you have, how much wealth that you have. That's a form of measurement.
Okay.
Not that it's the right one or that's the only one.
Right.
It's a form of
Right.
measurement.
It is a form of...
The society that we live in value that form of measurement a lot. So that social pressure of not having it might, when you take 100 people, that wealth is not going to be 50% that less, has less than the average, or not the average of median. It would have to be the median.
The median.
And it's not 50 people that has more. It's going to be like 10 people that have the majority and the 90 people that don't have as much as the 10. Because of those 90 is such a greater number than the 10. That's why the social pressure affects more people negatively. Whereas kids, they don't have that social pressure in terms of money.
Well said. It's funny how you broke down just made me think of it. The money as a unit of measurement, sure, but like a societal way to measure, I guess, somebody's status. I think people try to like subconsciously use... I think subconsciously social media is being used as that tool of measurement for happiness. So people want to be measured at a high value of happiness. So kind of like you said earlier, to that point, they portray themselves as being happy and having things so they can be measured societally as being happy. But like that's all for nothing if you're not actually happy. So I think that measurement piece is crazy because it's kind of just like people like subconsciously judge. It's just the judgment thing. Like as being human, you're going to judge. It's just, do you act on your judgments? Do you kind of let it run your thought processes or not?
I keep going back to, why they keep saying this topic. Honestly, if someone has a thoughtful conversation about it and is open to it, I think majority of people can understand at least where we're coming from.
Yeah.
That money, it definitely does affect happiness at a very big scale. And I just thought it was so interesting. So this weekend, I have a lot of buddies coming in from all different states.
Okay.
And one even came from Japan. But this guy in particular, I used to hang out with him, or I have hung out with him in the past. And I remember having a conversation that he was trying to retire early at age 40. Or I forgot the age, but it was like in the 40s or the 30s.
Yeah.
And we were maybe like 22, 23 at the time. So to do that, you need money, right? To retire early, you need money. And so that was that. I remember having that conversation. And yesterday, we were at a bar and we were just talking. When I say this, I'm really not trying to brag, but it is what they say to me, regardless of what I think about it. But they view me as someone that likes getting money and has a lot of money relative to them. And
paper chaser.
When that conversation comes up, I remember, particularly that dude that I was talking about, he said yesterday that, he doesn't really care about having money. Which is okay, but it was interesting because it went from such a high passion to get money and retire early to now he doesn't care about it all of a sudden. Maybe life happened and maybe he grew up in a better way. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, how it sounded like, it was like a loser's comment. The guy in second place that never got it, so it was like, you know what? Like, that's not an important thing to me. I'm going to focus on other things that's not money related. Whereas he has such high potential. He just doesn't utilize it.
Yeah.
and he could be very well off just because
Yeah.
he kind of lost that race in comparison. It just seems like to me that he's just saying it. It sounds like he's saying it to you, but it almost when I hear it, it sounds like he's saying it to himself. That hey, like money's
That's
not really
deep.
important.
That's
That's not
deep.
me.
Yeah.
Money's not me. Whereas when we're trying, when we have a, I think, positive relationship with money, I think I do, and I know for sure you do,
Hmm.
that we just acknowledge money as part of our life and part of our success and part of what we want,
Yes.
and then we have a healthy relationship of trying to attain money and happiness at the same time separately. Even though there's so much correlation to it, at the end of the day, money and happiness shouldn't be something that you compare things to. It just its own entity. Happiness is the
Okay.
one thing that you achieve for, and then money is something else that you try to attain and shoot for.
Right. But you are saying they're related though.
They are related, but the emphasis of trying to relate them comes up too often in our
I see. Okay,
society.
now I better understand. Okay, okay. People try to force the relationship. I think they're innately related though. Like it's a symbiotic relationship. Like they feed off each other. Yes, you can be uh, a grump, like disgruntled, and get money. You
Mhm.
can not have money and be happy. Both facts. Yes, they can both exist. However, and I personally, ideally, I would like to have both. That's all I'm saying. And I do think, again, there's a symbiotic relationship that they could feed off each other if you achieve the harmonious balance. If I was like an old wise man, but if you can achieve that balance, like, and this is not me saying like, man, forget about my family. I'm trying to get money. Man, forget about education. I'm just chasing this paper. Man, forget about my friends. I'm in it. Like, I very much care. I think the people close to me can attest. Like, huge family person. Love my friends. Most of my friends are actually like family. I do value education. You're one of only a few people that's on my vision board, and I told you like this year I'm trying to learn. It's one of my like overarching themes. All those things can also be important. I think there is also a stigma that exists that rich people are either maybe, and I'm not rich. Let's make that very clear. But are either like a-holes or don't maybe care about anything else. I just don't think it's as true as maybe it's publicized.
Yeah,
And
it's
again,
definitely a minority. Definitely a
yeah,
minority of
I'm not
rich
saying
people.
this is the hyper billionaires or even, but I'm saying the majority of people that society deems rich, I don't think are, and again, this is my opinion because I don't know them, are like a-holes or that's all they care about.
Well, there was like a trend going on a couple years ago. Maybe it was like during COVID or something. Maybe it was right before COVID, that time frame.
Hmm.
But there was like the eat the rich movement on social
Yeah,
media.
yeah, yeah.
They were just they were just literally trying to bash Jeff Bezos and all these rich
Hmm.
people. But when you think about it, imagine how many lives and families Jeff Bezos, helped out by having Amazon.
Yeah,
Like they have a service that's I use on a weekly basis,
yeah.
which is not ideal, but it happens. And that he created jobs for all these families that they depend on that employment to live their
Right,
life.
right.
And all the investors of Amazon internally or externally that
Yeah.
benefited so much from him having a company. And I mean, in that aspect alone, he's already done such good to society.
Oh, changed the world for sure.
And when you look at other billionaires, or just we just say billionaires, but this can happen at any level of a lot of wealth. But majority of the people donate at a certain at a whatever level.
To
And when you
some
have
extent.
money, even if Warren Buffett says I'm only donating 1% of my net worth,
Yeah.
and then I
Still an
say, well, you
insane
know what, I'm
amount.
gonna donate 10% of my net worth,
Yeah.
10 times more than you. But when you look at the value creation from that 1% versus 10%, he's gonna
Crazy. Doesn't
have
even doesn't even
ten
compare.
thousand percent more productivity with that money
Yeah.
because he's just offering so much more.
Right, right, right.
So
Right.
now it's all percentage based, but it doesn't really work like that. If a billionaire is giving up 1%, which is a million, I couldn't even give up. I couldn't even give up
I don't have a
myself to
million
to create that.
yeah.
Right.
to give. Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people, they donate. There's a Shoot, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But there is a, I think he started out in real estate, but he's a business guy now. But he has a nonprofit where his team full time only looks at opportunities to donate his money each quarter. It's like, hey, here's a budget for my quarter. I don't know, let's say 20 million, let's just say.
Right.
There's a COO that literally
Yeah.
sits around like, hey, here's how we're going to spend the 20 million. We're going to donate 5 million to this charity. We're going to do 10 million to this organization. And
It's awesome.
that creates so much positive value to the world. And then you can only do that with money. But as humans, we depend so much on other humans and the connection between us as is in like society. One of the greatest form of joy and happiness is when you help out other people. And
Oh my God, yes.
they may be donating their money just to feel that happiness of them knowing that they can help people. But that's a lot of the rich people that we know that we somehow hate and they're somehow bad people.
Yeah.
But I
That's why
think they do so good, so much good to the world.
No, I agree. And, people could argue they could do more. They could do other things. Sure. Not going to dive into that. But kind of trying to bring this all together. Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, for me, right? I want to elevate myself as an individual for my family and family to be and for society. So I can help out more. Like, even now, I can only help so much. But I'm going to in theory, I'm going to leverage ways to make myself better and to make more money so I can ultimately help more. Like, and it kind of goes back to this balance. I think we're starting to reiterate a lot of things we've said, but it's a simple phrase. Like, you can, like, with more, you can do more. Like, I mean, and like, money makes money. Like, once you start getting a little bit of money, like, that will make, you can leverage that to make more money. So one thing I wanted to mention as we wrap up is something that Marcy Shimoff also talked about in that little snippet that I heard from her, which I thought was super interesting. And this is just to shed light on, I'm not saying like if being rich is a must or if you get to some level of monetary wealth, like you're happy for eternity. That's not necessarily true. For that, I would almost argue the opposite, that you have to find intrinsically what makes you happy, and then likely money can drive that. But anyway, she said that, I don't know where this was derived from, but she was like, after a study of people that hit the lottery, after 1 year, they identified with a level of happiness after hitting the lottery that they were at prior to hitting the lottery, which I thought was super interesting. But conversely, for paraplegics, after 1 year of whatever accident now made them a paraplegic, they also return to the level of happiness that they were at prior to the accident that caused them to be a paraplegic. So I said all that to say, and it kind of goes back to, you can find intrinsic things that make you happy, and you can, to some degree, control your happiness or what things make you happy. And I think that's important to note, because it kind of just drives those point home that it's not all external, like things that happen to you that will make you happy, such as hitting the lottery or losing a limb. I just wanted to bring that up in closing. But you got anything before we wrap this thing up?
Now go ahead, take it away.
Sweet. So we appreciate y'all as always. Great conversation. I got a lot of food for thought, and I think we were able to navigate a couple different things here. So you can definitely catch us next week. This is Rebel Wisdom. That's all we got. Later.